Now, this time last week, I was discussing the aggressive mid-air buzzing of an Australian surveillance aircraft with former Major General Senator Jim Molan. And I asked Jim whether the setting off of flares at close quarters and the injection of aluminium chaff into the path of the plane's engines could have been fatal.
This instance, Chris, could have resulted in all the crew on board that aircraft. It has a large crew. It just shows the thuggery, the intimidation, coercion, and the dangerous nature of what the Chinese Communist Party is forcing the People's Liberation Army to do.
Well, this dangerous act of intimidation has become a focal point of discussion at a top-level defence summit this weekend. The world's top political defence officials with interests in Asia gathered in Singapore for the Shangri-La Dialogue Summit. And it was the US Secretary of Defence, Lloyd Austin, who was one of the first to hit out at China for its dangerous confrontations with Australian aircraft.
And in the past few weeks, PLA fighters have conducted a series of dangerous intercepts of Allied aircraft operating lawfully in the East China and South China Seas. Now, this should worry us all.
He chose his words very carefully there. It's way beyond just a worry. In concert with what the Chinese Foreign Minister has been up to recently in the Pacific and the raft of agreements he's forced down the throats of island leaders, China is not to be treated lightly. Now, Beijing is flexing its muscles in the region like we've never seen before. And the attack on one of Australia's planes over the South China Sea has put the US on alert.
We've seen an alarming increase in the number of unsafe aerial intercepts and confrontations at sea by PLA aircraft and vessels. In February, a PLA Navy ship directed a laser at an Australian P-8 maritime patrol aircraft, seriously endangering everyone on board.
You know, there is absolutely no reason for the Chinese to buzz foreign surveillance aircraft in international airspace. Everything that the Chinese said after the last incident about what we didn't know about the accident or what we didn't hear is nothing more than complete garbage and propaganda. Now, Canada too has also accused China of harassing its patrol planes, which were flying near North Korea only last week. And the Japanese Prime Minister linked what was happening in Eastern Europe with the tensions in the Indo-Pacific.
I myself have a strong sense of urgency that Ukraine today may be East Asia tomorrow.
Now, back to Lloyd Austin. He went on to say that there are dangers of undercutting an international order. Listen to this stern warning.
Order rooted in rules and respect. Defend our interests without flinching.
They will defend their interest without flinching. Now, Australia's Defence Minister Richard Marles is in Singapore as well. He castigated China for its military build-up in the South China Sea.
Chinese militarisation of features in the South Chinese Sea needs to be understood for what it is: the intent to deny the legitimacy of its neighbours' claims in this vital international waterway through force.
Well, it's correct to point the blame on China for how they've created these military atolls across the region, which provide perfect launching sites if there was any conflict. But what did Australia and the US do about that as it occurred, as it unfolded? Zero, nothing. We looked on. But this afternoon, it was China's turn to have its say on this world defence stage, and Chinese State Councillor, Defence Minister Wei Fenghe did not take a step back.
Let me make this clear. If anyone dares to secede Taiwan from China, we will not hesitate to fight. We will fight at all costs, and we will fight to the very end. This is the only choice for China.
So, if you create a conflict, we will fight to the end. Now, the US is hardly going to initiate a conflict. The war in Ukraine has clearly defined the extent of America's war efforts, even in the face of genocide. So that won't happen. But if a move is made by China on Taiwan militarily, and the United States does what it's also promised and defends Taiwan, would that be considered as initiating a confrontation? Well, you'd have to say, under dodgy Chinese rules, that would probably be their interpretation, which means unless one of these superpowers reverses their threats, you'd have to say that war is someday indeed imminent. Here's the Chinese Defence Minister again.
We should respect each other and treat each other as equals and reject a zero-sum game in which the winner takes all. We should seek peaceful coexistence and win-win cooperation rather than hegemony and power politics. Global affairs should be handled through consultation by all stakeholders instead of being dictated by just one country or a small group of countries.
How is talk of peaceful relations, which that statement was an attempt to raise, how is that in line with China's plans for Taiwan? Peace would only seem possible if the West allowed China to take over Taiwan unimpeded. Now, the Chinese response in Singapore today was just a diatribe of complete falsehoods and propaganda aimed at fooling the world that China has very passive intentions and they want to travel with the rest of the world down the same path. In what could be described as a breakthrough, though, in China-Australia relations, Richard Marles did hold talks with his Chinese counterpart in Singapore this afternoon. Frank and full was how his office described the meeting. And after copping the Chinese cold shoulder for more than 2 years now without a single conversation, let's hope that meeting today might lead to a thawing in our very cold trade war with China. But the truth is, under the leadership of Xi Jinping, Beijing has been fooling the world for the past 9 years. But right now, as this summit proves, no one's fooled anymore. They are not to be trusted, and they pose still a massive threat to the free world.